He said, in Russia, we get our milk from cows. And I don't know why American cows don't give milk. But if you come all the way here to give me milk powder, then you Americans are totally crazy. It was February 1993 and it was cold. Minus 32 in fact. I was on day 4 of my new job in the Ural Mountains on the edge of Siberia, working for a humanitarian aid organization distributing milk powder to needy groups all over Russia. There were 3 groups that we were targeting: pregnant women, children under 3, and large families, 3 children or more. But what was particularly disturbing at this time of chaos in Russia, apart from the famine and the total breakdown of distribution networks, was the fact that in the industrial Ural Mountains, no less than 70% of women were unable to lactate. And so on paper, this seemed like a really, really good project. My job was to work with the local authorities to produce lists of the pregnant women, large families and children under 3 in the area, and then go and do a 1 or 2% pre-check to physically verify the addresses were real, these people were real, and it wasn't going to be some sort of scam. If we found that there were discrepancies, we would send them back to the authorities and say, if you want to be included in the project, we have to have better lists. And if you can't do the lists, we can't help you. And so it was that I had a couple of months really, really fascinating, driving around Sverdlovsk Oblast, which was the region around Yekaterinburg, which was the industrial heartland of the Ural Mountains where the Tsar was murdered in 1917. 5 days a week, we'd go off in the car and we'd go and do these little pre-checks. So I saw all the little towns in this region. And one particular day, I was with my driver, Mansour, and I had a big ginger beard at the time. And we went off and it was minus 32 and we were in his larder and he was smoking. It was icy. The roads were really, quite how he survived, I've got no idea, because the larder he was driving was ancient. But he was very, very diligent, lovely driver, lovely guy. We went to this village I have a thin recollection of, but it was basically it was a one-road town of very colourful wooden houses. And we had 2 addresses in this village to check just to see if they were genuine for this project. And so I came to the first house, and I'll never forget this visit as long as I live. And we parked outside this wooden house, 2-story. I opened the gate through the courtyard and I saw 3 cows. And I noted that. And then I walked up the steps to the first floor where the front door was, and I knocked on the door, and this guy came out and I said, are you Ivan Ivanich? And he said, I am. And I said, my name is Paul Bradbury. I'm an English representative of an American humanitarian aid organization, and I want to talk to you about some humanitarian assistance. And all he heard was that I was American. And the fact to have this ginger-bearded Westerner rocking up at your doorstep on a Tuesday morning was a bit bizarre anyway. He just basically called up the whole village and all his friends. And within 10 minutes, there were 20 people in his living room with me as the star. And they started getting out the vodka to have a little drink. They started cooking the pelmeni, which is this bit like ravioli, they're sort of stuffed with rabbit. Absolutely delicious. One of the nicest things I had in Russia. But the questions started coming in, like, who shot JR? Was it true that every American had 2 ex-wives? How many cars did I have? How many houses did I have? Blah, 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 blah. And so the questions got more and more sort of bizarre, and they clearly weren't listening to anything I was saying about the project. They were just fascinated to meet a real, so they thought, American. And out came the vodka, more vodka, more vodka. We were toasting to Ronald Reagan, we were toasting to American-Russian friendship, we were toasting to the beautiful American women. It just went on and on and on. And finally, after what must have been an hour, I had a question from one of the neighbors who said, so excuse me, can I ask you a question? I said, sure. Why are you here? And I was like, excellent question. And then I started talking about the project and about how the American people were trying to help the Russian people in this struggle for democracy, which was our official line, and how we realized that there was a distinct lack of milk available, and that was a big problem. And people say, yes, that's true, everything fine. And so we had this project, and we're targeting certain categories like large families, children under 3, pregnant women. Fantastic. And I said, and Ivan Ivanovich, I've been sent here just to check that these lists are real, and do you actually have 3 children, as I've been told? He says, yes, I do. And I said, in which case you qualify for the humanitarian aid. And he looked delighted, and he said, what did we win? And I said, well, we have this project of delivering milk powder. And there was just silence in the room, and you could hear a pin drop. And he's like, milk powder. And I said, yeah. And I knew what was coming next. And he said, follow me. So I followed him to his front door, out of his front door, down the steps, and he pointed to his 3 cows, and he said, a line I will never forget in my life, and to which I had no comeback to. He said, in Russia, we get our milk from cows, and I don't know why American cows don't give milk, but if you come all the way here to give me milk powder, then you Americans are totally crazy. And I left, my head sort of filled with shame, really, and they were just thought I was a complete and utter idiot for coming all that way to offer them something that they already had. And I will say that the project in general was extremely useful. I will say that there were instances where things went completely wrong, and there were definitely instances where people received the milk powder who actually had cows and ended up feeding the milk powder to the cows. That's how crazy it was. But overall, the project, I think, was worthwhile. I wouldn't say the same about that with some of the other projects that we were doing there, which we'll talk about in a later chapter.